Well, now let's queer up out South Florida. Bigger budgets and delayed development in Wilton Manors. In this week's Out South Florida, I look at growth, or the lack of it, in Wilton Manors. Lack of a hotel in the island city has been a discussion point for years, and now we have a vision of what one may look like. Developers bought the lot of the old funeral home on Dixie Highway just south of Five Points. They laid out their vision in a community meeting and took questions. The developer told me he's working with local artists and designers and made a point to make sure the hotel reflects Wilton's LGBTQ+ heritage. A good start. But don't look for a grand opening anytime soon. They haven't even formally started the permit process. Other major projects are stalled at best. Alibi Plaza redevelopment isn't scheduled for further discussion. The Holy Mackerel lot on 26th Street is dead for now, and the lot across the street, where the church was, is up for rezoning. Meanwhile, the city's budget is expected to hit $52 million in the next fiscal year. The budget is very detailed, but headline eye-grabbing numbers are very familiar to South Florida families, including double-digit increases in healthcare and property insurance. At the same time, there seems to be support for lowering property taxes in the city. Wilton Manors is at a crossroads. How it deals with growth now will impact the city for decades and could be a model for how LGBTQ+ neighborhoods survive going forward. And, you know, I think anyone who's lived in this area for more than 10 years knows that developments on a lot of these sites have been fits and starts. You know, here we are, okay, maybe not. And Wilton Manors wants something, but they don't want just anything. And finding that support, they rewrote the city code and zoning a couple, 3 years ago to make it easier to get projects like this done. But it's a long process. Not only does planning and zoning have to sign off, the city has to sign off, and there are also federal requirements, EPA and things like that. And of course, Broward County has their own set of building codes. So it's a long process, but
so you're saying
it's just
years?
a lot to go through.
Are you saying years? Years. Like
it can take a year just before we're even ready to break ground on any one of these projects.
Right.
Wow. Is this going to take away like the hominess that Wilton has right now?
It very well could. You know, 8 stories on the heart of Wilton Drive. That's the most controversial one right now because that does set a precedent. They say it's not going to become a canyon with, you know, mid-rise buildings all around, but it's a slippery slope. The ones on 26th Street, I don't think people would be as bothered by because 26th Street isn't really the heart of our community, but the one on Wilton Drive is creating a lot of consternation.
And was the commission meeting full of people?
No.
No. That's surprising.
No, but it's a process. The budgeting process, there's like still 3 more public meetings. You can read more about them those dates are in my article on outsouthflorida.com.
Yeah. Hopefully, but can Wilton survive without this type of redevelopment? I mean, how long could it stay homey? You know, how many vape shops can we have? How many Thai restaurants can we have on the strip? But, you know, like there's no hotel. Do we need that type of economic development? The number of jobs it's going to bring in, the number of events that's going to happen, you know, at these places. Has anyone ever thought about that perspective?
I've talked with a couple people who are very intimately involved in the budgeting process. And yeah, we can absorb these hits for now because property values are going up. But the fact is, we can't keep the budget growing and keep this level of services up if we don't have some fresh revenue on the horizon. And right now, we're stuck at everything that's basically there. Yeah, there's some duplexes here and there and stuff like that, but major developments,
Scott,
that's where we're going to get the money.
Let's take advantage. You're city commissioner in North Miami, the longest serving LGBT politician, political leader in the state of Florida. If you were sitting in Wilton Manors, you're not, I understand, but if you were sitting in Wilton Manors, what would your observation be in terms of what you're talking to community residents? What do you think about what's going on in Wilton?
First off, I hope their budget includes a lot more money for police protection for the Stonewall Parade when it comes along, because the last two years they've had all this brouhaha that, you know, we need to charge money so that people get, you know, because we don't have enough for security. They better have a much beefed up Pride Parade budget in place. Residents who come to meetings and who speak out on things like that generally don't like development. But in my position, I always say to them, okay, well then how much do you want me to raise your taxes? Well, I don't want you to raise my taxes either. Well, they lose sight. Everybody just looks at development as evil, and there can be a point at which there's too much of it. But the police officers you have on the street, their gasoline isn't getting cheaper. Their salaries aren't going down. They're not even staying stagnant. Just to keep the things that you already have, your libraries, etc., you've got to raise prices to keep up with, with the cost
and growth,
of
in
inflation.
especially a small community like Wilton Manors.
So
growth is the offset versus taxes.
That's the only thing you have. So if somebody has to pay that bill, do you want to pay it out of your pocket, taxpayer, or do you want a developer to bring us more money? And then they sort of go, oh, okay, well, developer should be bringing us more money because I personally don't want to pay that.
It's an interesting observation because John's story in out South Florida is kind of the good news and the bad news. The bad news is the risk is gentrification of our community. That's Faye's point, or any of our points in terms of, will we lose the nature of the uniqueness of Wilton Manors, especially its LGBTQ nature. So that has to be balanced very carefully. I will just tell you selfishly, for me, it's really good news. I've already put in for a transfer. Now, I work here in the studios here at Sunshine Cathedral on the campus, but I've already put in a transfer because the offices of Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out are right next door to this new hotel that will go in, that on the top floor has a fabulous pool and bar and food space.
There you go.
So I'm moving my desk over to...
I don't think you should.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.